I'm Becky. I also go by BDub online, which you may see on my Twitter and Discord if you know me through Discord. And I am the Senior Partnerships Manager at NSE. I look after all of our partners that we've got current partnerships with. So that's like Intel and Monster Energy. And then also I work on the new business side as well. So I look for brands and companies that might want to partner with us and talk to them and organize all of that and look after those activations. Favorite food, mac and cheese. Cheese, just love it. Pasta, love it. Put it together, it's even better. The best game I've ever played, that might be Far Cry 3, actually. I might replay it. I was thinking about that the other day. I loved Far Cry 3. I love it. I wouldn't say it's not one that probably comes to mind if I think of like my favorite game, but it might be the best game I've ever played. Or Dota, maybe. Oh, it might be, okay, I might get some hate for this. It might be the first Witcher game, the original one. I really wanted to play the third one, but if I'm going to play the third thing in like a series, I always like to play the first and second. And so I bought all of them and I had to give up like 10 hours in. I found the mechanics were terrible and I just did not get on with it. So I ended up watching a playthrough and then playing the second one. And then I'm probably like 25 hours in for The Witcher 3. So yeah, still lots of hours to go. But yeah, the first Witcher game, not good. Didn't like it, didn't rate it. Part of me wants to just say London because then it's like on my doorstep and I could just easily go. But I don't know, imagine if there was like an esports event in like Venice or something. That would be kind of interesting. I don't know. Canals, esports, they don't really go together hand in hand, but I think that'd be cool. PC, definitely. I used to be console. And then I got my own. I got my first PC. I don't know, 2016, and I haven't looked back since. Really, I do have a PlayStation, but I actually don't know who would I be. Maybe I would be a character in Stardew Valley because life just seems very chill and relaxed, and the whole town is very wholesome. I don't know, looking after a farm and pottering about, looking after animals and doing some mining in my spare time. That sounds great. So my first introduction to esports was through my brother. He was playing a lot of RTS games and CSGO and like Dota. So even though I'd seen him playing it a lot, I actually hadn't like got involved myself until he kept talking about Dota all the time. And I was like, okay, well, you have to teach me about this game because I'd played games forever. I'd had consoles forever, but never had a PC. So I got my first PC in 2016 and I said, all right, introduce me to Dota, let's play. And I was just kind of hooked on that ever since. And then it opened up this whole other side of gaming for me. I was very much like RPG gamer, never really played online particularly before. So yeah, he kind of opened up this whole new world that I hadn't really looked into before. And I've been playing like Dota ever since and was involving myself within the Dota community and working on side projects with that. So yeah, that was my intro into esports. The more I got involved with the Dota 2 community, I was getting more exposure to people who actually worked within, I guess, that field for their actual full-time jobs. And it never really occurred to me that you could have a career in working in esports. I'm not really sure why it didn't, but at the time I went to university to do graphic design. I was doing being a graphic designer for my full-time job, and it wasn't something I particularly enjoyed, I have to say. And so I was kind of looking at other industries to work in because I worked in a variety of different fields before I got into working in esports, which was like the automotive industry. I worked in property for a little bit. I worked for like advertising agencies, which all really good experience, which ultimately led to, I guess, to where I am now. But it was kind of like a convoluted entry into where I am now, going from being a graphic designer. I then moved to Canada. I worked for Ford doing their like graphic design work and like marketing materials and stuff. And then I came back home. I was freelance for a little bit. then decided I didn't want to be freelance anymore. I really like the structure of a full-time job. I went back into full-time work, but for a property company in marketing, because I had gained enough experience to kind of go back in as like a fairly junior marketing person, even though I'd like worked up to being a senior graphic designer. I kind of went back into the workforce in a junior role to work at, to gain more experience in marketing. Did that for probably like a year and a half, whilst also working on my side projects within the Dota community, which was the work I was doing with Desk Ladies, which is a women's group and women's community. And then also the work I was doing with the podcast as well, which was back in the day, Defense of the Patients, now Fourth Spirit. Yeah, just gaining as much experience as I could within the esports community. Then I got my job at NSE as the social media community manager, and then went to the partnership side of the business the year before that now. So it was really convoluted. And I feel like a lot of people who get into esports later kind of has a similar story to me. They kind of float around until they find esports as an industry, and then kind of, hopefully anyway, for the most part, settle there. It's a great industry to work in, and I absolutely love it. And this is like where I'm going to stay. I've found the place I think that, yeah, I want to work in for the rest of my life, hopefully. Unless it all blows up. Hopefully it doesn't. I think generally working for NSE is really rewarding anyway, because you can get to interact with the student community like all day, every day. And there are some real talents sitting within that student community. I think something I'm really proud of is our internship program. We take on 3 interns each year for 3 months, and we kind of expose them to all areas of the business within NSE, but mostly it's a like social media community manager role. And we get them into the office. We'll take them along to events that we're going to within that time. If they want to do something, gain experience in something, we'll always try and fulfill that. And I think there's not that many internships that are around really within the esports industry, especially the ones that are paid. So I'm quite proud of like the work we've done with that. I know the thing is 3 people a year still doesn't sound that much. I wish we could take on like 20 because there are so many talented and enthusiastic students out there wanting experience. And actually not just students, our applications are open to non-students as well, but mostly the people who apply are students, just because that's most of our community. Just being able to give them and demystify, I think, the industry a little bit, because I think it can be quite daunting looking on from the outside in. You don't really know what's available to you. So being able to offer that experience 3 times a year, I think, is something that, yeah, I'm really proud of. I don't know, maybe I'll still be at NSE. I love where I work. So yeah, I'm very content here. So maybe still with NSE. Who knows? If I'm not at NSE, maybe like the next natural steps would be either for like a team or something, working for a team. But generally, I don't know, I'm quite happy where I am. I love working with the students, so maybe I'd still be at NSE and still working on like partnerships and stuff. Maybe I'd kind of level up to being more like business focused from a high level point of view. But yeah, I'm very content where I am. So as long as I'm kind of still making an impact somewhere within the esports industry and working on things that I care about, that's kind of all I can really ask for, or all I really want. Yeah, I mean, I was so excited when I was asked to be part of the committee. I think it's something that for a while I've looked at, like women in esports, through my work with co-managing Desk Ladies for so long, which, well, I say for so long, it was 2016, so I guess in the world of esports that's kind of long. It's something that I really care about. There definitely has been progress made in the last like few years. I remember when we first announced like the Desk Ladies group and what we were doing there, and we had a lot of pushback from the rest of the community, where I've seen similar things being announced, and while you still get people hating on it and saying, why is this needed? I don't understand why this is needed. Generally, I would say the esports and gaming community has become a bit more accepting for it and understand, but there's still so much work to do. And that's why I'm excited to be part of this committee, because I think there's still a lot of education that can take place in saying why this is needed, why it's important. Giving more opportunities for competitive play or resources to people who need it. I think those are all super important. So yeah, I'm very pleased to be part of the committee, and I think we can do some really, really good stuff together. I would say not well enough yet, but I do think there is progress. I was watching an esports tournament the other day on Twitch, and there were, out of the 3 panelists, 2 were women and 1 was a man. And no one said anything about it in Twitch chat. And that was something that really stood out to me, because I was like 5 years ago, I'm sure people would have been saying, 2 women, like, what the hell is this? I mean, the same esports tournament, I tuned back in and the same panelists were on, and then I did see a few comments. But the fact that there was this half an hour amazing, I don't know, stretch of time where no one said anything about it, and it just wasn't even an issue, wasn't even spoken about. Representation is happening in certain aspects. I still don't think it's particularly it's not actually well represented within the professional side at all, professional teams. And unless I'm mistaken, like, I really can't think of any mixed teams that exist. It's great to see there's lots more initiatives for like women's competitions and women's tournaments out there, which I think will encourage that mixed team scenario to potentially happen in the future. But at the moment, I don't think it's getting better, but we're not there yet. Because also, if representation was good, things like the committee wouldn't have to be needed. And yeah, I think, we'll get there, but it just takes time. Yeah, so we try to track like our own community and see kind of what changes are being made there in terms of gender diversity. And I think while it's still overwhelmingly male, like most of our community are men, that number each year, because we do an annual survey each year, that number is slowly coming down each year and is becoming more balanced. Even if it's only like a few percentage, there is the trend that more women are entering the space and entering that community. But something that we found was really interesting is that each year when the esports societies get elected, we kind of try to find out who's sitting on those committees for each of those societies, and student leaders that are women has gone up a lot. Whilst tracking those new committee members, we saw that there was a 11% increase in women in those leadership roles within their societies. So, which overall 26% of those esports committees are made up of women. Whereas within the actual community itself, I would probably say it's more like 10 to 15% of women. So just by having those leadership roles, you would hope that would also encourage new women also to enter the community, whether it's not to join the committees or anything, but just to be part of those groups, to be part of those societies, and also get involved with esports at university. Because I think if you don't have that representation of leaders, then it might seem like a bit intimidating as a space. Like when I think about my own entry point into just playing esports and getting involved with communities and stuff, my way to do that was through a women's group, because I found the Dota 2 community really intimidating because it was overwhelmingly male. So yeah, there is definitely progress taking place, but it's slow, but we'll get there. Women-only tournaments, I do think they are needed. I didn't used to think this, actually. I remember when I first started seeing them, I was like, I don't understand. Surely this seems counterintuitive or counterproductive because it's forcing segregation in a space where I don't feel like it's needed. But after like thinking about it more and speaking to people, I've supported women-only tournaments for quite a while now, just because I think that until esports is diverse enough to sustain those multiple mixed teams at like the professional level, only at that point are they not needed. And until that point, I think they are needed to get to a place where that could take place by showing that there are these talented women, whether that's across professional level, broadcast, commentary, all other areas of the industry, but involved with those tournaments. I think seeing that does show that there is a space for women to exist within esports. And so I do think they're really important. I mean, I think we just have to continue doing like more of what's already being done. The thing I would like to see change is the attitudes shift. So whether that is people within the industry or just the wider community of esports fans, right? I think that attitude shift needs to take place where seeing a woman involved in something esports is not a standout point to you. So it's something that doesn't need to be commented on. It's something that doesn't need to be mentioned. It's just a non-issue. And I think by doing what all these initiatives around the world are doing, whether that's, you know, the committee, whether that's, you know, other initiatives in different countries, or developers putting on their own like women's tournaments, I think all of that work will help that attitude shift change. But I think that is what needs to happen. Maybe if I'd had like friends that were part of my friendship group were playing, maybe that would have got me into playing esports earlier. I mean, I would say that I had lots of female friends growing up. None of them played games at all. I was the only one, pretty much. So the people who I did know who were like playing games and were my friends were either like my brother or his group of mates, who were all men. And while, you know, I was friends with them, that didn't put me off from playing and stuff. But I think if maybe my female friends had also been into it, then maybe we could have played together. I mean, I also think this is something that was really prevalent, or still is really prevalent, is that because games were marketed to men, they were more likely the ones to play them. Like, I do think it's, I mean, this is only anecdotal, and I'm sure there's some stat out there to kind of back me up, but out of all of my female friends, I was the only person who played games, and all of my male friends played games. There's such a huge difference, or there was for me when I was growing up, in terms of who was actually playing games or not. If I'd had those other female friends who were also playing games, then maybe I would have looked into starting a bit earlier, or getting involved with it. But because I didn't have that, it was just ended up being kind of through my brother. And so I think it was probably when I first started playing Dota, I was playing for maybe 6 months without finding the Dust Ladies group. It had a different name back when I first found it, but it took me about 6 months to find that, because I went into playing Dota, realized it was quite toxic and quite sexist, and then looked to find a group of women. So maybe if I'd found one earlier or come across one earlier, then maybe I would have thought, oh, maybe I can learn in a non-judgmental environment. Because when you're picking up any esport, I think it's always quite difficult. There's so many different things that can happen within the game, and there's different mechanics. It can be quite complicated. So especially as a newbie, if you're trying to learn in a non-judgmental place, sometimes it's not great to do that in just general online games, just pubs. It's not the best place to do that. So maybe if I found that group a bit earlier, I would have got involved a bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, women in esports, I think means to me that there's such a wealth of talent and passion and diversity within that group. There's so much that women can offer in this space, whether that's, you know, a slightly different perspective or different talents within that group. I think there's so much that we can offer to this industry, which is why diversity in the space is so important. When I think of the perseverance also of women in the industry, I'm always very impressed, especially people who are front facing. Like, you think of broadcast talent and the players themselves. I mean, you see online the kind of hatred and abuse they can get for just being a woman existing in the space. So I think there's a lot of perseverance, a lot of talent, a lot of passion, and I love it.